Welcome, my friends. I hope you guys are all having a great day. And today, guys, we're back with a showdown between the Vampire Coast, who shall be led by Count Noctilus. And it looks like he is going to be facing off against the dreaded High Elves, who shall be led by Alarielle, the Pigeon Queen. Coming in hot with two great eagles, which are actually pretty annoying. Those little peckers certainly can do some work against the big old Colossus. Now, as far as my build goes, in the front line, it is going to be four groups of the standard Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs. These guys, obviously, not too much to say about them. They hold, they have a lot of HP, they don't really do much else, but that is a-okay, because the Vampire Coast, of course, does its work with its powder, its monsters, and some of those other scary tools. Now in the secondary, obviously a lot of High Elf players are going to be coming in with a lot of spearmen. Occasionally you do see White Lions mixed in as well. So having these Zombie Pirate Gunnery mobs for the bombers to wear down the spearmen is very, very cost effective. I found it to be a pretty key aspect of this matchup since bombers did get buffed a ways back. I can't remember when it was, but I think it was a couple months ago. Now for my Lord, a little bit torn here. I do like to go with Luther, but I found that sometimes if you go with Luther, the High Elves will simply bring Tempest, and you'll be trapped in the sky. They'll bring you down, they can out-monster you in the sky, and it's not a good situation. So I did bring a big old peg leg here, and he's pretty good at kind of poking down archers, and archer spam is one of the more common tactics against the Vampire Coast. So I figured that Count Noctilus here would be good, and of course having the extra summons does not hurt. We have one gunnery wipe with a long rifle as well, and I sometimes go two in this build just to kind of shoot down the birds in the sky and also give you some poke against the heavy armor they bring, but having a single gunnery wipe for extra powder certainly isn't bad. We have the Shade Wraith Gunners, something I'm experimenting with. This is actually one of the first matchups in which I used them, but I found them to be pretty efficient in some of the testing I've done just against the AI and things like that. They have Discourage, and with their 245 range, they can outrange the enemy archers and even put some hurt on things like Reavers and Silver Helms and you name it. So we'll see how they do. Two Mortars in the back. Mortars, of course, a very good answer against archers as well. Two groups of Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs with polearms. And as far as our firepower goes, we do have one powder unit here in the black spot. And I figured I needed something with mass. The Lamprey's Revenge, of course, to stop like big monsters or cav units. I had no idea what my opponent was going to play here. So just trying to have a little bit of a mixed forces army that can deal with a couple different threats. Two Scurvy Dogs, one here and one on the far side. And that is it. So now for my opponent's glorious army, it's basically just a ton of a couple Reavers, Lothern Sea Guards, Spearmen, White Lions. So yeah, just mostly Spearmen and Archers across the board with two Great Eagles, which of course can be used pretty effectively with the Pigeon Queen, the healing, to go after characters like Count Noctilus. Really puts you on the run. So here you can see my cannons are going to be shooting in initially against the White Lions, and the High Elves are going to be pulling back, which is okay. They are advancing on this side, a little bit of a dual-pronged approach. So it looks like this formation is falling back, waiting for his formation up on the high ground to collapse down this way and potentially get some good work on my weak side. So here we do have the Scurvy Dogs. Scurvy Doggos are going to be scouting up. Of course, these are Shadow Warriors. And Shadow Warriors and Stalking and Stealth Archers, Deepwood Scouts, all those type of things are actually pretty good against Coast. They can close the distance without taking the same amount of artillery fire that Archers that don't have stock can. Now I can see them though. So the plot thickens, of course. Count Noctilus immediately given an order to draw his cannons on these guys. And you can see we get some good pounding for sure. Taking out 7 models, and the Scurvy Doggos are able to fall back. I believe the other Scurvy Dogs had to fall back to my formation as well. He was able to force me back with his Reavers. Reavers are a little bit slower, but as far as combat prowess goes, Reavers are able to just dunk all over the Scurvy Dogs in combat. So you definitely don't want to be taking that trade unless you have to. So Count Noctilus still shooting, it looks like, firing, moving fast. I think he did restock here, and now they're visible once again. The Mortars have been given orders to shoot at the Archers, so they will be going after the Archers up on the high ground, as will the Shade Wraith Gunners. So these guys will line up their sights on the birds at first, I believe, going after the Great Eagles. Yeah, just killing the Archers is probably the most important thing in this matchup. Those things are just such a counter against so many of the units on the Coast roster. Mournguls, zombies, gunnery mobs, you name it. So Shade Wraith taking some pot shots downtown, able to clip the wings of that Great Eagle. Not really slowing it down too much. And up in the hills, though, one Great Eagle around the back is pressuring in, although he is taking some firepower here from my gunnery wipe with a long rifle, which is why I often like to bring 2 of these. They're really good. You can see the Great Eagle is already pretty beat up, and the gunnery wipes can also probably beat them in melee combat with their armor being considered. So here it's a really good situation, actually. The bow units here, the Shadow Warriors, and really getting pushed back by the firepower of Count Noctilus as well as the Shade Wraith Gunners. So that's a great initial situation for me, but it looks like the birds are coming in. A little bit aggressive going after the Scurvy Doggos, trying to pick a model there, but I do react very poorly. Don't pull back, but I was so focused on so many other things going on at the battlefield. And I did try and slip some Scurvy Dogs past him, but he actually hid his cav in the trees here very well. And these Scurvy Dogs are simply going to get caught and probably taken out. So very good kind of control, really reining in my harass units and doing an outstanding job. But other aspects of the battle are going very well for me. Shade Wraith Gunners and Count Noctilus and my Mortars are making very quick work of his formation. We also pull back our Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs here, and the Bombers are going to be throwing in. Granted, they might also get engaged on by some Spearmen, so Wraithstorm and Bombs going down. Hopefully we can wear down these bad boys and prosper. Noctilus is now taking some damage. Scurvy Dog's still running about, so I was able to put a slip on those Reavers, just trying to harass in the back line. Now archers are shooting into some of my goodies, so they'll be scooting up to go after some of the spearmen. But really the initial early game, I would say the harass from him has been good, but we've certainly taken the lead. Doing the pounding here on these shadow warriors and these archers is very substantial, and we've taken a little bit of damage on the gunnery mobs and maybe some scurvy dogs, and you can see some of the scurvy doggos are actually going to get on archers over there, which is good. Have been really, really good. So bombers coming in here. Bombers are going to perform very well against spearmen. You can see here they're down to about 60%. That's only the first volley. If they can rip more volleys off, that should be good. And here comes another volley right there into the spearmen. Really buckling those guys. Probably will honestly break them due to leadership. Noctilus, however, is taking some damage here from his archers. So his archers here and his regular archers have put some hurt on Noctilus. He's also gotten a great eagle back here, but thankfully I do have some halberds to intercept and take down that big old bird. And the Shade Wraith Gunner is doing an outstanding job. You can see a lot of the High Elf archers very, very damaged here. However, the Goon Squad is coming into play, and this is where the High Elves can potentially come back in the game. Noctilus is running, but these are some angry birds. I do have Invocation. Certainly going to mitigate some of the damage. You can see Noctilus does blow his load there. Certainly not having a great time with the birds. And now I'm just going to be falling back to the halberds, trying to get away from this scary pecking squad. So some of the High Elves have gotten through. Spearman on top of the black spot is not a great situation. Also, some Reavers have gotten in. Thankfully, Noctilus has dropped his zombies here, which do intercept those Reavers partially, not completely. And the Shade Wraith Gunners are now being attacked. So balance of power is a little bit coast favored here, as we are able to really clean up this flank. The deckhand mobs plus the bombers able to clean up those Sea Guard. Sea Guard, I was like, what are those for a second? Those archers, those Sea Guard. Able to clean up the Sea Guard, and now potentially we can collapse downward and really get some value. However, the big birds are coming in, and if he is able to get a big heal, that could be quite nice. Also, something that's very clutch about this is that Alarielle does have an ability called the Boon of Aisha, which gives nearby units magic damage. So all of her birds actually do magic damage, which means my Shade Wraith Gunners are just getting absolutely destroyed. I was expecting them to last a little bit longer. We are able to pound down one Great Eagle using Noctilus and some of the gunnery mob firepower from our summons here, but the Great Eagle probably will come back and cause problems. Now back here, the High Elves are in a bit of a mass exodus. You can see our Lamprey's Revenge have been able to really press the backfield in conjunction with the mortars. But really the big threat for me is dealing with this bird squad, because the cycle charging is very powerful. And despite the fact we have been able to hold off some of the harass here with the Reavers, he's been doing a really good job just taking out my Shade Wraith Gunners, number one, and cycle charging Noctilus just over and over. Now the summons here have been really solid, and that's something that with Noctilus is really good. You can summon gunnery mobs next to him, and if you're being attacked, they can like kind of cover fire for you and really just do some huge damage. And you can see Alarielle super beat up here, actually taking a lot of work, but he is going in for a bit of an alpha strike here, going after the mighty Count Noctilus. So Noctilus is going to be juking. Invocation is activated. We're pulling back. And the Lamprey's Revenge, again, able to clean up archers, but the High Elves are coming back with a lot of stuff. And honestly, even though all these guys are really beat up, I no longer have the mortars to really pound them down. So that focus fire might actually be able to whittle down something like Lamprey's Revenge just due to the sheer numbers. Though this is a good situation, we do have the birds trapped. The Great Eagles are kind of, taking a lot of halberd poke, but the healing from Alarielle is so good on those single entities. So a bit of a desperation play here. I do summon another gunnery mob. I know I need that damage here, and this is where we potentially clinch the game. If we're able to kill Alarielle, really do some huge damage, break her off the battlefield, that's going to be substantial. Granted, it looks like she's getting away, taking another shot right there. I was clicking so ferociously. I was like, kill her, do it! Gunnery White in the back, pretty good on ammo. Granted, I do have extra powder, but he has been lending his long rifle to this fight. But the Great Eagles are just so persistent, jumping back on Count Noctilus down to 720, 710, running away, trying to pull back into this powder fire. And the Bird Queen gets back up in the sky, ready to drop some fun action here on Count Noctilus, I would imagine. Wraithstorm activated, trying to pop down the Great Eagle. And in the meantime, the Gunnery White also ripping some shots. And my summons were able to kind of hold them back. I have one mortar functional. My crabs are just kind of reaving around the battlefield. But now you guys can see the balance of power actually goes into the favor of the High Elves, as all of their archers rally back. And it just goes to show how important it would have been to keep those scurvy dogs online. Had I been able to keep my dogs maybe hidden in the trees until the late game, I could have cleaned all this up most likely. So again, being more conservative with that would have been quite nice. And now, the crabs are pretty tanky for sure, but they're being attacked by spears. And despite the fact that Great Eagles have poor AP values, just the weight of fire and the weight of damage coming in from all this like gold investment from the High Elves is certainly going to pay off. And I don't know if my Krabos are going to be able to do too much. Now, I still have the Gunnery White. He's kind of the backbone of my army. My mortar is pretty much offline. I did give it some extra powder to rip a couple shots before it goes quietly into the good night. But the spearmen are very ingrained in my lines. And I don't have too much to really stop the onslaught of the High Elf archers. As they do come back here, we'll fast forward. So there's a little bit of Benny Hill action. However, Alarielle, a bit of a risky engagement here. She does go after the crabs, and now she's getting crab slap pretty good. And if Alarielle were to be sacrificed to the crab gods, I might have a chance with the Gunnery White, but you guys can see the game is rapidly going in the favor of the High Elves as my Vampire Coast lines do collapse. So very, very well played to my opponent. It was a beautiful game. It was very back and forth. I think at the beginning we had some really good pressure on their forces, but my suboptimal Scurvy Dog play, his really good play with the Great Eagles and the Boon of Aisha taking out Shade Wraith Gunners was very, very good. Ultimately, though, I didn't have enough disruption. Back in the day when I used to play this matchup, I would run like maybe 3 to 5 Scurvy Dogs, and I probably should have. He only had, I think 2 Reaver Cav or 1 Reaver Cav, so had I had like 3 to 5 Scurvy Dogs, the amount of pressure with good micro I could have put on him would have been substantial. Now, as far as changing the build, I did like the Shade Wraith Gunners. They actually had some nice spray. I might take the Black Spot out and just get like 2 more Scurvy Dogs, and I think that would be a huge difference maker, because really that's what it comes down to. I got like no value on the Scurvy Dogs, so we pulled ahead initially, but we didn't have the follow-up to really close out the game, and he did such a good job with the Great Eagles. Really a good showcase of how those units can actually be really effective against us in certain matchups, especially for gooning, and the amount of healing they get for how cheap they are. It's really solid. So well played to Summer, who I believe was Lotus Moon, but I'm not sure. This game was played a while back. It was like 2 months ago, and I just saw, I was like, oh, this is a great replay. Let's cast this one. But I believe it was Lotus, so well played to him. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Vampire Coast versus High Elf game, and yes, the High Elves can win. They are a good faction. I know a lot of people always say that they're not, but High Elves certainly have some teeth in the hands of the right player. But yeah, guys, that's it. So we'll see you with more Total War content soon, more Bannerlord content coming up, all kinds of good stuff. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you on the other side. Take care.